Hello and welcome to yet another Super Connectivity. Later in the week, getting after the very long, very exciting Super Marvel Roundup. Here we are, me, Charlie the Professor Esser, and once again, the lovely.
Oh, Phil Parrish. Thank you. Lovely.
Oh, you're gorgeous, Phil. On the inside, at least. I don't know. I've actually never met you face to face, so you may be gorgeous, you may not, but I know as a person, as an old soul, you are unbelievable.
It is reaching there, folks.
Moving right along. So, interesting news in the okay. So let's start off with what I think is the big reveal from last Tuesday's winter finale, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't think a lot of people caught this because I'm not seeing anyone mentioning this, but you do realize we just introduced magic into the MC universe, into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it was just a little thing, but they showed the computer program running the stones in the circle that opened the portal. And what did you see? What shape it formed?
No, I might have missed it. What was it?
Formed a pentagram.
Ah.
So there we go. This was this very interesting thing about when you talk about magic and the movie universes. It's a very interesting thing about if they're going to have a film show in the Chinese market, they actually do not allow films about the supernatural in the Chinese market. Which is why Thor can call himself a god, but officially he's another dimensional being called a god. Okay? And that the Rainbow Bridge is not a magical gateway between worlds. It's a quantum Einstein-Rosen-Podolsky bridge, although I think they just called it an Einstein-Rosen bridge because people always forget about Podolsky, but he was there too. An Einstein-Rosen-Podolsky bridge between the two universes. So it's an interesting way that they basically have had to create a science so magic. Now, I've long talked about how really all the science we've seen in the Marvel Universe has been magical in its nature. That it's about person and sympathetic magic and the essence of who you are. That's how they create this super technology and these super amazing feeds. But at the same time, it's an interesting, and this is actually something Marvel has done for a while, and they actually do it with Captain Marvel, and they've done it with Kree technology a lot, where they've said that Kree technology is based on the quantum idea of observation and that observation of reality alters the outcome of reality. And once you say that when you observe something on the quantum level, you can create this idea that if you interpret something on the quantum level, that can affect the quantum existence. And then if you extrapolate that out, you actually start, I'm going to make, a dragon appear because I'm going to observe the dragon, and now the dragon is real. This is the through line of the logic. But what differentiates that from magic is just that rather than a red cloak of levitation, when you say it, you wear a lab coat. And so this is an interesting way to present magic, to discuss magic, to present a magical idea in the universe, while still grounding it in a kind of science that we can sell to the Chinese market. Because, hey, it's all about the Benjamins. Let's never forget this. So, but that was very important. I actually tweeted that. No one, like I said, I don't think anyone caught up on it. But because of that one scene, because as they're doing this ritual, which is officially, this is a science thing. We're scientists. We're opening just quantum gateways, but they're following magical ritual to do it. And this, I think, ties into Doctor Strange and ties into our eventual season 2 of Jessica Jones, which is going to be out. Patsy and Damien Hellstorm, mark my words. I hope. It's giving us this idea of magic, and I think that this was the first time we've seen magic. And I'm going to wager. Here are my thoughts. I'm going to wager there's going to be some magical references going on when we get to Agent Carter. And I think because let's face it, we have Civil War coming up, but we also have Doctor Strange, and they've got to prime the pump. They've got to get this idea of magic in the MC universe grounded in what we can observe, so that when Doctor Strange shows up and they have to do exposition dump and data dump on people and say, here is how our laws of magical physics work, it's not going to be a total shock, because it's going to be within the understanding of the Marvel Universe as it's been presented. And I think that, as I've suggested before, the best idea you can have with Doctor Strange is to suggest him as a scientist who came to understand the superhuman human existence connection, that he's understanding how the mind unlocks power. And that's why he was on Hydra's list as a neurosurgeon, because he was so close to coming to understand it. And well, that's a power that Hydra wants. If they don't feel they can control him, it is better that he be dead. It is better that we not have that knowledge and Hydra stays in control and keep the people happy, than that knowledge becomes real and then people can access superpowers who aren't under Hydra's control. So, very excited. Now, in Maveth, we get this very interesting question of exactly what the monster was. Clearly, it wasn't Black Bolt, but I do have two theories on who that was. And the first theory of who Ward... Spoilers, kids, spoilers. If you don't want spoilers for the last episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you should have watched it by now. I'm recording this on Friday. That was on Tuesday. If you're not watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you just don't want to. So here's the spoiler. What Ward becomes at the end. And there's two possibilities in my thinking. The first, and these are possibilities if Ward has become something that we know. The first possibility is that Ward has been taken over by Maximus the Mad, which fits into everything we've seen. They've said that the beast causes people to go mad. That was Maximus's power. He can manipulate people to make them go mad. So that fits in that. That would be something that the Kree would not be able to control, especially coming off the Purple Man in Jessica Jones. Having this idea of mind control powers and the power to drive people mad would be a perfectly frightening concept. So that, yes, the Kree would send him away, and Maximus the Mad, who is this being who is maybe non-corporal or not exactly what he wants as he is in the comic book, but able to jump into different bodies, take over different people, and be, make anyone an inhuman, as it were, by taking over their bodies. And, you can see why that would be something that the Kree would want to exile. Option two, and this is actually what I really think it is, and it's based only on one little thing. When Will dies, well, it's really two things, if you want to be honest with it. When Will dies, we see this little black, thing crawling out of him. A little black and slimy. And what's black and slimy? A Venom symbiote. And I think that what that was, that eventually infects Ward's body, is a symbiote. And you can say, well, symbiote was under Spider-Man, but now, of course, Spider-Man's back in the MCU. And more to the point, they probably could have written in symbiotes without it violating any contracts, close enough. It's close enough for government work, as they say. It's close enough for agents of Shield. That they could introduce these things not as characters that were under these other contracts, but characters that got close enough that we can be almost saying who they are, imply that's who they are, but never actually violating the rules of the contract. So they could have the symbiote, but because it's not on the outside of the body, it's the inside of the body, or mostly on the inside, because we may get a Venomy word later. That would be, and the idea is that, so basically the Kree have these superhumans, and they want to control them.
Yeah.
They think, well, let's bond them with these alien symbiotes we found. Maybe that'll help us control them because the symbiotes have certain weaknesses that we can exploit. When it infects this one being, they realize we can't control the symbiotes, and now we've just, as I always say, the problem with the living weapon is, which of course I stole from Darkbar, the problem with the living weapon is it's alive and it can make its own decisions. Huh? And you can think you can control it, but you've just made a super weapon because you've bonded an inhuman to a symbiote, and now the symbiote is free, and the symbiote is out. The symbiote gets sent off to Mavis, but because people know of the power of the symbiote, they keep on sending people there, because if they can bring the symbiote back, then that will give them power. Is the idea. It's like people who want to become vampires. It's. They're going to make the deal. They're going to make the deal with the devil to hopefully get that power for themselves.
So you believe? I mean, it looks like it after what Coulson did, but you think Ward is completely dead and it's just a symbiote or something driving his body, or Maximus?
Well, yeah. I mean, from what Brent Dalton said, is he said Ward's story is at an end. That was the end of Ward's story, and Ward coming back is this other thing. Now, of course, as Brent Dalton said, they don't tell him what's going to happen to his character. He usually finds out the episode before. He's like, "Oh, what? I'm in Hydra now? What? I'm an alien goo worm now? Oh, okay." So I don't think, and I think this is something Marvel's doing because, they know you got to be careful with these reveals, and they don't want anyone to know too much. They want the characters to be as surprised as the audience. And but Brent Dalton says that Ward's story is at an end. So it could be, and this is this thing, if the symbiote, and it is a symbiotic creature, whatever it is. It's something that's inhabiting a body and carrying it through. It could have been driven mad over the years, and maybe when we get a Flash Thompson character, as they've sort of worked into the Agent Venom storyline, it's basically able to bond with Flash, and they can have a really sympathetic, symbiotic relationship where they're working together. But that because it's been so screwed up over the years, it's because it touched Deadpool's brain. And now, quite frankly, because it touched Ward's brain, it's going to be stuck in the madness. Fred and Angel, they had this whole idea that Fred was gone, Fred was dead, but there was this echo of Fred in Illyria, who was the ancient god who had taken over Fred's form. And I think that's sort of what we're going to see with Ward, which is that Ward is dead, but there's this echo of Ward. And dealing with the humanity of Ward is what's going to make the Venom symbiote sort of find peace with itself, because there was a human in there. And now, so I can imagine it coming to Skye and saying, I'm not Ward, but I understand human feelings. Yes, I got it from the sociopath, but maybe I understand. And so maybe there's going to be some progress on that. I mean, but most of what I want to see is I want to see that symbiote be taken out of Ward and given to Flash Thompson. Although obviously we're going to have to wait a few years because Flash Thompson's still in high school, because Spider-Man's still in high school, and he's got to have his whole arc of growth where he, goes to number 6 that were in at that time and loses his legs and then gets bonded as part of Operation Rebirth. But anyway, but what I think is one of the most selling points of this being an actual Venom symbiote is how do they actually kill Will? And so the symbiote has to leave Will's body because it's on fire. Because the symbiote can't handle that, it goes over to Ward's body, which, hey, as luck would have it, it was, not fully dead, just mostly dead. And Ward is never more dangerous than when he's dead. And re-inhabits him, and now the symbiote comes through. And I think that makes for a really exciting idea and exciting story. And, and here's what's going to be interesting, okay? Because, of course, we ended off with Powers, Booth, and Ward. And what I want to see is so Ward's come back, and Ward is the symbiote. I want to see Powers, Booth, take out a whistle and make that sonic screech. And then, it's like, what, did you really think I brought an elder, entity from another world to Earth and not have a preparation for how to keep you under control? Look, I want to work with you, but you have to understand I'm the senior partner. I don't want Powers Booth to just get, owned by evil Ward, Agent Ward, Agent Venom. Oh, and look, first name Agent. I want it to be clear that, Powers Booth isn't some idiot supervillain. He actually knew what he was bringing back. He knew more than he told Ward, and says, and he could say, I didn't know if this was work, but that's what the legend said, that you were very sensitive to sound and vibration, which of course worked for the monolith. And of course, what did the monolith turn into? But sort of a gooey slime, like a Venom symbiote. So, there's all these parallels here that now that they have the rights to use the Spider-Verse characters, it makes sense that this is where they're going with all this, And of course, now we can actually get the Venom symbiote bonding to Spider-Man for a couple episodes before it goes on to make a real proper Agent Venom storyline. So I'm very excited on on the idea of Venom Ward. That is where I'm putting my money on right now. I think it's going to be Venom Ward. Now, of course, I thought it was going to be Black Bolt. I was dead wrong. It could still be Maximus, and of course, you could still have the Inhumans being the force behind it, and the idea that because they were sending the human sacrifices to Maximus because they knew he needed bodies to go to because he would wear them out and he needed a new body. But it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. It's going to be pretty awesome if we can get an Agent Venom Ward and get a really good MCU Venom that's its own thing. This is one of the things. I recently did the Gammacast, also on the Southgate media platform, where we're discussing the original Incredible Hulk theories from the 1980s. And one of the points I make in this is that the Incredible Hulk series from the 1980s very much is the birth of the MCU. Because in the Incredible Hulk series, they are taking classic Marvel ideas and classic Marvel characters, and they're just similar enough that you recognize them, but they're letting them be their own thing. They're letting them grow in their own ways and being something not quite what they were in the Marvel Comics universe, but something that is still strong in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so I'd love to see their take on Venom, their own Marvel Cinematic Universe Venom. And this, I think, would be such a great way to introduce Venom, to introduce their own character of the Hydra Venom. And of course we saw, for what it's worth, the last place we saw Hydra Venom was in Hail Hydra. And who did we also see in the Hail Hydra book? A character called Agent Ward. So, if we see a green Venom symbiote and Agent Ward and Hydra, I'm seeing something. I'm seeing a lot of connections here. and they may just be trolling me, but I'm saying, you know what? I'm thinking Agent Venom here. I'm really thinking this could have a real Venom to it, and I would love to see that. I think we're all going to love to see it. But you know what? Here's what I'm going to say about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has never gone the way I thought it would, and I've never been disappointed by them. So, for example, right now I was expecting Black Bolt and Medusa and this Inhuman Scion, and completely went a different way. But I'm so happy they did. I'm glad they were able to set me up for one thing, pull it away, give me a different reveal, and then make me go, oh, that's even better. That's even better. And I can't wait to see if it's not the Venom symbiote, if it's some other thing, some other mind worm. I'm going to be excited to see where they take it. Well, he's got to deal with both the fact that he killed a guy who, in his heart, he probably wanted to save, and he made the choice to kill him, and then now he's back, that the killing didn't take. And although then again, it could be very, like I said, it could be very, because that's the thing. We don't know if the symbiote is evil, I mean, that is really kind of this interesting take on this, is that, we don't know. We know that the Kree didn't want the symbiote on the planet, and we know that the symbiote had to take over bodies, but we don't necessarily know that the symbiote really killed people any more than it had to stay alive. We don't really know how things progressed once they were there. It's things have been implied, but we shouldn't always take what we're told at face value here. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But honestly, so far I have to say I was wrong about Black Bolt, and I couldn't be happier. I remember when I was thinking that they were going to introduce the Atlanteans, and instead they gave us Nick Fury, and I was like, well, you know what? Just as good, if not better, what they're giving us. I'm excited to see what we get in March, but I'm also excited to see what we're going to get in Agent Carter, and I really hope we get some more magic. Like I said, I would love to see Monaco, the Prince of Magic, make a cameo. I would love to see hot Agatha Harkness show up, and they don't have to do all magic, but they can just sort of imply that there are things that people don't understand, because there are these artifacts, which are these ancient Kree things that are here, but they all follow this pattern that when we do this with them, it opens these Einstein-Rosen-Podansky bridges, which we can then manipulate with our own mental powers, and that gives us power and things. You can write it so it'll play in China. And well, there you go. Wow, we could be opening up a lot of interesting doors. And for what it's worth, one of the arms of Hydra, the tendrils of Hydra, one of the heads of Hydra was the I forget what they call it, but it's what Damien Hellstorm is currently associated with. And it's sort of the occult version of Hydra, the occult, the rather being super people exploring ancient magics, and if we get some Damien Hellstorm in there, that opens us up to Patsy, which is what I'm really looking forward to connect it all back to Jessica Jones, which of course I think everyone says. I mean, here's what I'll say: even people that said they didn't necessarily like a lot of the performances in Jessica Jones, that had actually just now started to hear. And granted, from the Wait What podcast, and they're always down and everything. They're very traditional. Well, I love them. Graham McMillan and Jeff Lester on the Wait What podcast. One of my favorite things to listen to. But they are very, they're very, very critical guys of a lot of things that are out there. And granted, I'm probably too forgiving of the books I read, because I figure once you spend money on it, you got to sort of you got to be happy that you spent the money on it. You got to be really bad before I'm really upset that I spent money on you. You know, you got to be the equivalent of a gold digger comic book. You know, you got to be a comic book where you never really wanted to tell me a good story. You just wanted my money. Then I'm mad at you. But if you tried your best, comic, and maybe it didn't work out, it's okay, comic. But Marvel is trying to get us to buy things. But anyway, but going back to just to focus before I get to the next thing. I was thinking, the name of the company in Jessica Jones is IGH. And if IGH is like the initials of the owners of the company, it could be something and Hellstorm. And that's how we introduce Hellstorm. And he could be like, and of course he presents himself as, oh, I'm the nice guy. Yeah, yes, we're experimenting on people, but Simpson's a volunteer. We're very upset when Jessica got exposed to these chemicals, but quite frankly, we covered her medical bills, and we didn't do anything with it. We just wanted to keep an eye on her, make sure she didn't hurt anyone or hurt herself, and she didn't for the most part, so we were okay with it. And yes, we're doing, and play himself off as a nice guy, much in the way that I think with they did with Kilgrave, is that they started off as a bad, but then they started to break him down, and they made you feel sympathy for him. But then they really played out that, no, he is such a sociopath. And you get the reveal, you get the double reveal with Kilgrave, where you start out, oh, he's a monster. Then, oh no, he is a victim too. And then it's like, oh no, you're a horrible person. There's been some great analysis of this recently, and that Crack did a fantastic article on why Jessica Jones is the darkest thing Marvel ever did. And basically, it's focusing on this relationship with Kilgrave, and they make this point that sociopaths like Kilgrave don't acknowledge that what they're doing is wrong, and that's one of the reasons why they're such horrible sociopaths. And they made this point that when when I heard it, it was like, oh, when he says, oh, you say I raped you, but what's rape about? Dining in the finest restaurants and staying in fantastic hotels. And it's like, well, the part of it that's rape is that you raped them. If you were just taking people out who wanted to go to the restaurant, if Kilgrave called me up and said, hey, let's go to a restaurant, it's like, okay, and we ate some good food and then we went home, then that's great. But when Kilgrave says, you and I are going to go to a restaurant now, and I don't have the ability. And that's the thing, is like, we tend to think about rape in terms of, the sexual aspects of rape. But really, rape is always about power. And so really, Kilgrave rapes every single person he talks to, even if all he's asking them to do is play the cello. And this is one of these great things, is this film is so steeped in rape culture, and this idea of rape as a concept that is so hard for humans to get their minds around. And of course, it is hard for humans to get their minds around, because rape is like the most alien thing to most human beings. The idea that you're going to force someone to do something is alien to us. You and I, we're not people that are going to understand the mindset of someone that is A, going to want to do that, and B, think that's an acceptable thing to do. It is alien to most human beings, because to most human beings, not only is it a horrible thing to do, but it's not something that would be particularly enjoyable to us to force someone to do something. That, if people are paper, if people are not real, in the way that Gwenpool sees, oh, you're not real, you were just created for me to do this to, which is the basic nature of being a sociopath, is that no one else but me is real. And so everything else exists only in how I interact with it. Well, no, exactly. But this is what I'm saying, is that Kilgrave is in that mindset. He's in that sociopathic mindset where he says, oh, I'm Kilgrave, I'm allowed to have this because you're not real to me. to a normal person, that is such an alien one of the reasons I think that people have a hard time accepting rape stories is we can't, it's like this. When someone kills someone, I think we'll believe that someone can kill someone because we've all been angry enough to kill someone. Because we can see how someone can get that mad and just want to take someone's life because or to get to that emotional spot where you kill someone. I think what's harder for people to understand is this idea of someone plotting to kill someone. I think that's a harder idea. I think people have a harder idea, except, it's hard for humans to be in a sociopath's mindset because every human being exists in a sympathetic relationship. All of us are in that sympathetic relationship where it's not about us. It's about that other human being and having that contact. But for a sociopath, you never feel that. And of course, it's fascinating, the idea that, Kilgrave is in this position where as a child, he gets this power where no one ever can say no to him. And as a result, he becomes separate from everyone. Because really, and this is an interesting thing about, Kilgrave's perspective of no one else is real. No one else but Kilgrave has free will when Kilgrave is in the room with them. And this is an actual truth of it. You can't make your own decision once Kilgrave has made his decision. And so in a very twisted way, Kilgrave is a sociopath, but he's also sickeningly right in the sense that, no one else really has the power to say no to him until Jessica breaks free. And like I say, it is, and one of the points I wanted to get to was, when Jessica is talking about, the other victims, who cares what they went through because what I went through was so much worse. And of course, we see that in real society where people will belittle someone else's suffering. We'll say, "Oh, that wasn't rape. That was just, you were drunk and you had sex with someone, or you just did this, or this person just did that, and that's not really this." But really, that's a flaw in us, not in that. And that what really the rape is about is that losing of the sense of self. And that is what makes Jessica Jones, even if you're not on board with aspects of the story, it's such a powerful story. It is such a powerful tale to tell. And of course, it does write them into the corner, because what is the next chapter of Jessica Jones? Because of course, in the comics, Jessica Jones doesn't get a next chapter. As we've said, she kind of just, after her initial arc, she kind of just becomes, Luke's wife, and then the mother of Danielle, and kind of falls into this kind of domesticated, defanged role as the Avengers mom, rather than being the Jessica Jones of her original arc, which is honestly kind of the nicest thing to ever happen to a character in a comic book, that she actually kind of grows and becomes a better person and has a better life. That never happens in comic books. That, I actually get to sort of overcome my trauma and then, actually have a decent life and actually continue to be someone of importance in my own life and make my own choices and, raise a person to be another good human being. That's pretty awesome. But you never get to do that in stories, and it's kind of at once. It's funny because we can look at, isn't that sad that Jessica doesn't have these adventures? But it's like nobody would want that life. The best life you could have is, I've got a person who I care about, and I actually just get to be a good person in my life, and it gets to be mundane, and that's that's good. That's the dream. And Jessica Jones is like the only comic book character who gets to live the actual dream. The actual dream that if you were a superpowered person, you actually would rather have is not to be living that crazy life, but to actually, even though she's still tangentially in that crazy life, she actually gets to just focus and be a good person and have a good life. And, so to that extent, it's like good for Jessica that she gets that. But if you want to tell the next chapter of Jessica Jones's story, and I think what you do is you explore Hellcat's story, Patsy Walker's story, and you open up this idea that, because we're going to be moving to magic and how we're going to open that, and we're going to get to this idea of the other dimensional creatures, the demons, who are just like Asgardians, not really magical demons, but just other beings in another dimension with another quantum signature, yada, yada, yada. And that Damien Hellstorm is, going to be presented as a good guy, but what we're going to find is, and this is my suggestion for Jessica Jones, that the final episode is Hellcat has powers, and Hellstorm is revealed as this powerful magic user, but then you find out that there's a cost, and so Hellstorm saves people's lives, but in order to save people's lives, a sacrifice has to be made. And this is the idea, is that rather than killing something, he can also bring something of equal evil back. And what he brings back is Kilgrave. So that you can have a third season with Kilgrave as this new returned evil. And the reveal of Hellstorm not being a good guy as much as he wanted him to be. And I think that that's a real powerful story they could tell. And I'd love to see that. Okay. One last thing, and then we're going to be done because we're running along again, and the All New Marvel Roundup ran long. But I wanted to touch one last thing, and that is talk a little bit more about talk about the give you a little Marvel DC preview on the difference between Civil War and Dawn of Justice. And because this was a very interesting article in Slate about the difference between the two trailers we got. And, one of the things that people have pointed out, which is the very basic aspect of it, is that, Batman v Superman is about two heroes who go to war, and Civil War is about two people who are just met. They just meet and have that classic superheroic misunderstanding, and that leads to the fight. And Civil War, it's actually about two people with real deep-seated differences of opinion who come into this battle. And what the article in Slate said is that actually what we're really looking at is the basic difference between the Marvel universe and the DC universe. And that DC really presents itself much more as myths about modern gods. That their universe is about these super beings who exist in this world who are above reality. And Marvel is always trying to ground its heroes in the pathos of daily monotony and the daily grind and the world outside your window versus the modern mythos of magical gods. And it's not meant to say that one is good and one is bad, or one is right or one is wrong, but to say that is, and to me that was like the best definition I've ever thought about the difference between Marvel and DC. That Marvel books always want to be the world outside your window. Marvel books take place in New York, whereas DC books take place in Gotham and Metropolis. And that these fictional cities with their fictional characters are meant intentionally not to be the world outside your window. It's meant to be this other world we get to look into. And that it's about the big god beings coming into this world and interacting on that higher cosmic level. And in that sense, that is what we get very much with with the DC, at least what we've seen so far about the Dawn of Justice. And it's a very interesting way to present DC, and I'm really excited about it. At the same time, I'm likewise really excited about how Marvel is presenting war. Because of course I think that Civil War is much more grounded in that very real problems of human existence. And this idea that, yes, as Tony says, so was I, to Cap saying, Bucky's my friend. And it just makes that point that I've always said about, Steve and Tony, they can be at odds, but they still have to do what they have to do. And they're both motivated by what they have to do. And even after this, they're going to have to deal with it. Whereas I think with Cap and Superman and Wonder Woman, they're always going to be above everything else. They are the modern gods. They are the new gods, and they have to be above things. And and again, to plug the Wait What podcast again, this is, I felt, that they made the point that basically that the trailer for Batman v Superman gives you the whole movie, because essentially what they presented is Batman and Superman meet. They have differing opinions. They're manipulated by the outside force of Lex Luthor to come to blows. And then the real villain is revealed of Lex Luthor and Doomsday. And then they join forces with Wonder Woman to battle the true threat in that classic superheroic fashion. And that, it is that big, sweeping new gods of the universe, very Kirby-esque in the DC universe, very Power of Myth DC that we're getting here. Whereas, Marvel, it's less about that big cosmic battle and more about people in that day-to-day grind of every little decision I make brings me closer or brings me further away from something. And I'm sure you're going to get, a villain manipulating things behind the scene in the Marvel Universe. I'm sure you're going to get the little day-to-days with Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne and how their daily lives grind into them. But when you look at the big overarching things, that seems to be the differentiation between them, is that, DC is the grand epic. Here's what I'll say. DC is Star Wars, Marvel is Star Trek. Marvel is smaller, it's day-to-day, it's ongoing, and it's about the dealing with the things we have to do, even if we're trying to make the world better. And DC is the power of myth and the power of the great operatic story. And it's an exciting time to be a nerd. I think we can all say it's an exciting time to be a nerd. And I think I'm starting to ramble. And so, Phil, do you have anything else to add on this super long SuperConnectivity after our super long all new Marvel roundup?
No, I think that's it. Just go check out 80s Reboot Overdrive's Gammacast featuring Dave White and our own Charlie Esser.
Yay! And be sure to check out all new Marvel Roundup with Charlie Esser and Phil Perch, and all of the 8,000 other podcasts that Phil Perch do, Flash Arrow, Power Hour, and
Before the
World's Finest, and what else you got out there?
Before the Bat.
Oh, Before the Bat, my favorite one. Okay. I love Before the Bat, by the way. One of our great podcasts on Southgate Media Network. Honestly, there were so many good podcasts. It's like Marvel Comics, I don't have enough time to listen to everything we have.
I know.
But I'm always happy to. Anyway, kids, send us some ideas for the new Marvel DC podcast we're going to do, me and Lilith and Phil as the ref, as the veritable guardian or watcher of our universe, who will both interfere and say that he never interferes as he makes his decisions about our own living tribunal. Phil Parrott, who will make a decision as to which really is the best, Marvel or DC. Finally decided for your amusement. So where can they send you ideas and thoughts of that? Or if they just want to tell you to please stop talking to Charlie, he rambles on too much. Where can they talk to you about that?
Oh, if they want to talk to me about anything Marvel, DC, or the greatness of Charlie Esser, you can email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com, and on Twitter, I am @nightwingpdp.
Oh, and if you watch Batman, live tweet along with Nightwing PDP at Before the Bat, because it's a lot of fun to do. It's always great to watch. And, of course, you can live tweet with me for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at Charlie Esser, CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And you can always write to superconnectivityblog@gmail.com anytime you want to tell me how wrong you think my theories are. And with that, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your listening, and connect with us again. Have a great night.